Good morning and welcome to Mental Health Monday. My name is Steve Reed, pastor of H2O Church in Orlando and a licensed mental health counselor here in Florida. And so we take little bite-sized pieces of mental, emotional, and spiritual health and try to break them down and understand them so that we can grow in our awareness. Because if I grow in my awareness, there's more paths of movement possible, and some of those paths of movement will lead towards freedom, and it's for freedom that Christ set us free. So thanks for joining us this morning. I hope this is a blessing to you as it is a blessing to me. We have been navigating through a complex experience that many of us have. And that complex experience is the feeling of angst. And so in August, we're navigating through angst because there's so many different pieces to it. It's a little bit more complex than we can handle in one sitting. After that, in September, we are going to be looking at story. So September is for story. But it's important for us to understand that angst is one of those experiences that we have and we've all had since something in February, March, April, depending on when it kind of hit us, that this pandemic isn't just going to go away in 2 weeks, and that our medical system is working hard to be able to be up to speed on all the different parts that it needs to be, and this is something that we've, as a world, never faced before. And so angst is a thing that we are all experiencing to various degrees, and we want to understand it. So let's jump in. Last week we recognized that not only is it prevalent in today's world, it can come from COVID, but it can come from lots of other places. We also recognize that it is actually extra challenging if we're already dealing with anxiety pieces or depression pieces. The anxiety pieces because of the component in angst of worry, and so it just kind of feeds more of that. And the depression piece because of the helplessness piece of angst, and that it just kind of feeds some of the depression pieces. Remember, last week we broke angst into 3 components. Those 3 components include worry, hope, and helplessness. It's that how long is this going to end? But it is going to end, right? And I can't do much about it. And all of those pieces together live in kind of a central place in our heart and our mind that feels like angst. And so last time then we also noted that we can reduce angst by easing the anxiety piece of it, and we recognize that there are a number of different anti-anxiety tools. We have looked at some of those on previous Mental Health Mondays, practicing being present, doing some deep breathing exercises, a number of different things like that. We also could use an emotional regulation tool, which is what we ended last time with, a practice called Light Stream. And so today we are going to move away from the anxiety piece, and we're going to look at the helpless piece. And the helpless piece is really interesting because we don't want to move into pretend, right? We pretend if we say, I'm not helpless at all. The truth is, yes, there are certain things that we can control, and there's certain things we can't control. So another synonym for helpless in this context would be powerless, out of my control, those kinds of things. And so what we want to do is recognize that there is some reality of loss of control, but there is not full helplessness. And so remember, in an earlier Mental Health Monday, we talked about understanding that in a very basic way, there are things I can control, there are things I cannot control, and there is the one who is in control of all things. And we're going to dial down into that reality a little bit more today. decreasing helplessness or powerlessness decreases angst. And so when we start looking at this helpless component, we want to differentiate between those things that I cannot control and those things I can control. So starting off looking at those things that I cannot control is helpful. It's actually helpful to write down or have in my own brain, yes, there are certain things I can't do anything about. And then what do I do with that reality? We'll talk about 5 ways to deal with that. So the first thing is I cannot control, and you'll have your own list. These are things that come to me and are common, but the things that I can't control, I can't control if somebody else does something or doesn't do something with their own social distancing. I can't control the actions of other people. I can't predict what's going to happen. I can't control somebody else's motives. I can't control the amount of Lysol wipes or toilet paper or yeast on the shelves of the grocery store. I can't control how long this will last. All of those things are true. I cannot control them. And so when I want to look at those things, my brain is going to, because of Daniel Amen noticing, it's not his fault, but because he notices that we lean towards negative thinking, automatic negative thoughts, my brain is going to be focusing on those things that I cannot control if I don't do anything proactive about it. And so recognizing that if I can let those things go, I have some significant benefits. I feel extra freedom. It actually helps my relationships with other people. It's an opportunity for personal growth. And so all of those things are reasons to look at how can I let go of these things. And so one of the things that I can do to let go of things I can't control is notice that sometimes if I can't control something, I blame somebody else. It's their fault. Those people who aren't social distancing. And recognizing that I need, like, if I can let go of blaming, that's going to actually reduce a significant amount of stress, and I actually then have more clear brain and energy to focus on things that I can do. If all I'm doing is focusing on what they're doing wrong, and it's a part of the things that I cannot control, that's going to take over me, and it's not going to help me move forward. And so another thing is being able to decide to let go. And to decide to let go, it might even be helpful to write it out. You know, I'm purposely letting go of other people's decisions on social distancing. I'm not going to try to control it because I can't. And so I've just written it down, and it's helpful to kind of recognize that. And it helps me from just getting stuck. And so if I can let go, then I can recognize that's something I can push away and recognize why, because it's keeping me from growing, it's keeping me from peace. There's specific costs of hanging on to it, and so I don't want to continue to pay those costs. One of the things that is, of course, a challenge, but I can notice that it's important, is to work at growing in trust that I'm going to be okay. Even though these things are out of my control, I'm going to be okay. I can let go of those things, the control of somebody else, and I'm still going to be okay. And so working at that, and then asking if there is a life lesson. Of course, we get to those places where something feels like it's coming up and coming up and coming up, and we want to ask ourselves, not just I'm bad and how many times is this going to be bad, but is there something that I'm being invited to learn about this? And maybe it's noticing that when it comes up and pushing against it, maybe it's some other thing, but sometimes there's a life lesson or a skill that I'm invited to move into proactively that can help me let go. And then the last thing is just to be able to do an exercise perhaps to purposely let it go. So for instance, I'm on my way into through the parking lot of a grocery store, and 3 people in front of me are all excited and going into the store, and they all have their masks hanging out in their back pocket. They don't even look like they're going to put them on. If they can get in through the door without putting them on, they're going to do that. And I'm feeling that feels like a danger. I don't want to go into a store where we're all not all masked. Or maybe that's not where you are. Maybe you're like, why do we have to wear masks at all? And I want to be one of those people who walks in without it. But wherever you are, and there's that piece of that other person is doing something that is different than my conclusion is, and there's that angst coming up. And so even as I'm walking, I can do this little exercise. As I breathe in, I can notice what I'm feeling. I am feeling angst because there's something I can't control. It is those people's actions. And as I breathe out, I can say, but I can let it go. And so just breathe in, look at those things and notice what I'm feeling, and breathe out. I can let it go. It doesn't have to ruin my day. I can let it go. It is something I cannot control and I'm not responsible for, and so I can let it go. And you can just breathe it in and breathe it out. And that's really, really helpful. So having just a very basic tool can be a piece of releasing those things I cannot control. And then we shift over to the other side and we look at the things that I can control. The things I can't control, I want to let go. The things I can control, I want to be able to move in towards embracing them. And so here's some things that I can control. I can decide to have a positive attitude today. I'm going to decide that today is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. I can decide to move in that direction. I can decide what I'm going to do with various medical recommendations and masks and social distancing. I can decide to turn off the news, limit my social media. I can choose to find fun things to do at home, talk to other people about what they've done and what they've found to do at home. What are the things I can do outside of home that are still, they fit within what I believe are healthy boundaries? I can limit my social media, I already said that one. And I can move into personally, moving into my offering kindness and grace to others. And so all of these things I can have an impact on on my world around me. And they're powerful things. I can also identify my fears. I can write them down. The more I understand what I am afraid of, the more I can recognize, is this a reality, and what can I do to push against it? Is there something that I can challenge it with? I want to offer 6 ways to take every thought captive. And so this is when I think about all these things that I can control and I want to move into them, there's this place that says, yeah, but these things I can't control are going to scream at me from time to time. I want to be able to push against them, and I want to move into the things I can control. And so in doing that, sometimes in a scriptural sense, we're invited to take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. And so Dr. Richard Gantz offers these 6 ways to take every thought captive. He says, number 1, I can accept responsibility for my thoughts. The reality is there's going to be thoughts that run through my brain that aren't mine. They're just there from my story in different places, and I can grab a hold of it and say, yeah, that's not me, and I can let it go, and I can notice which ones are my thoughts. So accept responsibility for the pieces that are my thoughts, and also recognize that I can make a difference in how much I focus on one of those thoughts. Number 2 is recognizing the importance of thoughts, that there is a reality that we become transformed in our behavior as our thoughts are transformed, are renewed. And so in Romans 12:2, that we are transformed by the renewing of our minds. And so our thoughts are as important as what we do. It's actually even more foundational because it's from those that our transformed behavior happens. He invites us to number 3, think through our problems instead of reacting to them. So noticing when I get that kick that I want to do something and saying, wait a second, before I do that, I want to process this a little bit. I want to understand what are the fear components to this, what is the out of control components to this, what is the sad components to this, what is the that's wrong components. I want to just be able to process them through so I understand what's happening. Maybe it's one of those times where I've just made a mistake and there's that automatic negative thought that comes in that says, why can't I ever do anything right? And I want to slow down enough to notice that's a thought that just went through my head. And I wonder if there's a chance for me to focus in that a little bit different. Well, there's something I can work on. And that's a pathway forward that isn't condemning. It's a pathway forward for growth. And so recognizing that, number 4, that taking negative thoughts captive by confessing them, and by that he simply means, well, here I am again with that negative thought, and just recognizing that, not trying to move away from it, not trying to push against it, just recognizing here I am and confessing it, and then shifting, number 5, to choosing to focus on the really healthy things. Lord, what is really true? Well, number 1, I know one thing that's true is my dignity, that I am made in God's image. And so there is dignity in me being me, made in God's image. I notice that I have a place in his family, that I am a child of the King, that I have been adopted into his family, and that I have full rights as a citizen of the kingdom of heaven. And those things are true. I have a place in the body. There's a unique way that God has crafted me that is different than how he's crafted you, and you have a unique set of gifts and talents and strengths and abilities, a unique perspective on life that he invites us to function in as a part of the body, not being independent, but recognizing that whole passage about the eye is not the ear, and cannot say, I have no need for you. So there's a whole picture of I am a piece of a greater thing, but I'm essential. I make a difference. And then also, the reality is God has grace and love that he consistently offers me. So that's huge, right? And then the last thing I want to just be able to invite in is, in closing, that believing it's possible that I can work at this. If this has been a struggle for me for a long, long time, I don't have to yield that ground. I can move forward. And so believing it's possible to continue to work at it. And I want to just leave you with Philippians 4:8. And that is, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure and lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any moral excellence and if there is anything worthy of praise, dwell on these things. And think about that word dwell. Dwell has to do with a dwelling, living, being in there. A significant piece of me being able to find freedom from this helplessness piece of angst is being able to recognize what are those things I cannot control, what are those things I can control, and dwelling on those beautiful pieces that come from my relationship with the Lord, how he's made me, and how I can offer myself into the world. So it's just really great to be with you today. What a blessing. If this is helpful for you, feel free to comment, feel free to share, feel free to like it. Those are ways that I know that this is helpful to you. And so I hope this week is a great week for you. Take care.